This is Maple Blues.
Welcome to the Maple Blues Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the NHL, the St. Louis Blues, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and other things hockey. I'm Penguin Note.
And I'm Charlie ND.
So, while I was away in Memphis, or no, not when I was away in Memphis, I think before I went to Memphis vacation, the NHL released its schedule. And I expected the schedule to come out a lot sooner, but it came out, I believe, that Thursday. I think it was Thursday, like a week or two ago. By the way, it's out now, so let's talk about it. Charlie, actually, your team will be starting first, so why don't you talk about the Maple Leafs' first game of the 2026-27 NHL season?
Well, actually, let me pull up their website real quick. We're finally getting something that I have wanted for a very long time, and that is regular season NHL games in September. Yes. So, we start off with, I believe, a Wednesday night game against our biggest and most historic rival, the Montreal Canadiens. Yeah, oh no, I was wrong. It's not a Wednesday, it's a Tuesday. That is almost unheard of. I should have known, it's literally right there on my screen, but Tuesday game in the regular season, that is definitely very weird. Well, Tuesday game in the regular season against the Habs is weird. Usually they reserve that for Saturday nights or occasionally Wednesday nights. It's very uncommon for regular season games to be broadcast nationally on a Tuesday, but that's going to be the case this year. And a lot's changing this year. We're going up to 84 games, which, I like. It's a number that's divisible by 4, and it means every team's going to be facing all their division rivals 4 times. No more wondering about which teams are going to be playing 3 times. It's all 4 times. Easy to remember. So, I like these new changes. Nothing really much to talk about. There will be afternoon regular season games, which I'm not going to talk about too much because the Leafs don't have that many. But we are going to be discussing that further. But yeah, I'm excited for the regular season. These are some pretty small tweaks. They shouldn't really affect the watching experience, but I'm excited for the season to get underway.
Also a change with the 84 season game schedule, the preseason has been reduced to 4 games. So for example, the Blues will only be playing the Chicago Blackhawks and Dallas Stars twice. Once at home, once away. Who are the Maple Leafs playing for the preseason this year?
Montreal and Ottawa.
Yeah, that was to be expected. As for the Blues, they will start the season on Friday, October 2nd. They have a 3-game road trip. We as Blues fans have to wait till October. But on Friday, October 2nd at 8 p.m. Central for whatever reason, the Blues start the season on the road against the Dallas Stars. Then they have a back-to-back. They have Dallas, then Colorado on Saturday, and a game on Tuesday against the Chicago Blackhawks. After that 3-game road trip, their home opener is Thursday, October 8th, at home against the San Jose Celebrinis. The Sharks. I'm excited. I know the Blues have made some offseason moves. I did touch on them earlier, but I'm a little confident. I guess not confident, but more excited. I have more optimistic. I have more hope, and that hopefully the Blues can get back to the playoffs. And also, as of notable, when I made that video back in April, the Blues are finishing the regular season at home against the Utah Mammoth. So we will see if the little Blues finish the regular season at home versus on the road curse thing continues. If they do make the playoffs, it's true. If not, well, I guess it's broken. But there's only one way to find out.
One more thing I want to say that I forgot to say. Something that's very important to Leafs fans, Saturday night games. They are like religion. And I'm happy to report that for all the weeks of the NHL schedule, with the exception of the All-Star break, the Leafs have a Saturday night game, which has not been the case in previous seasons. So that's great. Leafs fans are going to love that. Also, there are very few Sunday games and very few Friday games. So I think the Leafs only have 2 Friday games and 3 Sunday games. So that's going to be good. They still have some of the most back-to-backs in the NHL. And also, I think the Leafs are tied for the fewest amount of games they play against teams that are on the second half of a back-to-back, which is a shame, but, you know, you can only use that excuse for so long. Still gotta win every game no matter what. At least try to. But yeah, as far as the schedule is concerned, that's all I gotta say.
As for the schedule, the Blues and Maple Leafs, as usual, face 2 times, both in January of 2027. So on January 18th, the Blues go to Toronto. Then on January 23rd, the Maple Leafs come to St. Louis. So that will be exciting for the 2 times a year the Blues play the Maple Leafs, barring a Stanley Cup final, which would be cool, but it's probably not happening. But when January of 2027 comes, we will be there, we'll be watching, and then we'll report on it. And as Charlie touched on earlier, there are Monday afternoon games. Mainly, the NHL is trying to appeal to European fans, trying to give them games that they can watch without having to stay up super late or be up early in the morning. It's a good idea, although the Blues are not playing any Monday afternoon games this season, barring a schedule change, so this does not really affect me. Charlie, did you say the Maple Leafs are playing any Monday afternoon games or not?
They're playing one against the Washington Capitals, but that's in January, like very close to Christmas, and usually the Leafs have a matinee weekday game around that time. And it's not a big deal because, you know, the kids are off school and all that, so no one really cares if there's an afternoon game that time of year. But yeah, that's our only weekday afternoon games against the Capitals in December. But yeah, starting in, I think, January, we're going to start seeing a lot of like weekday afternoon games. Actually, let me pull open the NHL app. I just want to take note of this before we move on. Let's see. Calendar. Let's go to January. All right, so Monday, January 18th. This is a perfect example of what's going on. So we got Montreal visiting Buffalo. That starts at 2 p.m. local time. Or no, sorry, 1 p.m. local time, because I forgot BC doesn't do daylight savings anymore, so they're only 2 hours ahead. We've got the Tampa Bay visiting, sorry, may have just foreshadowed it. Tampa Bay visiting Boston. That starts at 1:30 p.m. Nashville visiting New York Islanders. That's at 3 p.m. local. Vancouver visiting Colorado. That's at 1 p.m. local. So, and also Utah visiting San Jose. That's at 2 p.m. local. And Columbus visiting Seattle. That's at 2 p.m. local. So for those of you not keeping track, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. 6 games in the afternoon on a Monday. And this isn't during the winter break, mind you. So this is just one day, but this is just an example of the NHL going all in. Now, obviously, Saturday and Sunday afternoon games have already been a staple in the NHL for a long time now. But the problem is, when it comes to European viewership, they're competing with European soccer leagues. So they're competing with La Liga. They're competing with the Bundesliga, the Premier League, whatever it may be. Now on Mondays, when those leagues are usually off, they'll basically have the TVs all to themselves. So we'll see a few months from now if this actually had any positive effects on TV viewership, but I'm sure the European fans will be happy about this. If you're a European watching this, shout out to you. But yeah, I think I'm glad they're only keeping it to 1 day a week so far, and if this is successful, we might see this expanded in the future.
When I said the Blues don't have any afternoon weekday games, I kind of sort of lied, kind of not. The Blues have a Friday game at 1 o'clock against the Dallas Stars. The only thing is, that's on a Friday. It depends on if you count a Friday as the weekday or the weekend. It's at 1 p.m. It's the day after Thanksgiving, so you got to put an asterisk on that. Do you count that as a weekday game? Is that the weekend? It's American Thanksgiving. You guys decide. Moving on. news out of Canada, Rogers, which is the big evil media company that they basically own everything. They don't just own the Blue Jays. They have officially acquired they have bought out Larry Tannenbaum's stake in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. That means Rogers now owns the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Toronto Raptors, Toronto FC, the Argonauts, the Marlies, Raptors 905, and a bunch of other things, but basically Rogers has a monopoly on all Toronto teams except the Scepters and Tempo. Now, Charlie, you could say how does this affect Canadians or just Canadian viewership in general?
Well, going forward, I think it's likely that we're going to see prices for stuff like Sportsnet Premium going up, or Sportsnet Plus Premium, I mean. It's kind of confusing. There's like different tiers of subscriptions. There's like Sportsnet Plus and Sportsnet Plus Premium, I think it's called. Let me look it up real quick. Okay, yeah, there's Sportsnet Plus and Sportsnet Plus Premium. And I think I saw a report from a few days ago, or not a report, but like a fan post of like prices going up soon. And you can see on screen here, it's already kind of pricey. For Plus, it's $249 for the year, and for Plus Premium, it's $324 a year. And now that Rogers has more of a monopoly over Toronto teams, we might see those prices continue to go up, unfortunately. And I'm not sure what this means for games on TSN. I don't know if this means we'll see Raptors games not be on TSN anymore. I don't know what their contract is. Let me do a quick search here. Okay, this AI like overview is kind of outdated. I don't see anything about TSN no longer covering the Raptors, but whenever these contracts are due to expire, I don't know if Bell is going to be able to continue to cover the team, which is a shame because I like TSN's coverage in general. I think they're a fine channel, but anyway, this also means we might see ticket prices go up, especially for the Leafs. They've been going up as of last season, which is insane because they had one of their worst seasons in like a decade last year, so I'm not sure how they could justify increasing ticket prices even more, but that's definitely not going to help with the whole stale environment that the Leafs are already known for having. I am not that confident in the future, if I'm being completely honest. I don't like Rogers. I don't like Sportsnet. I've made that abundantly clear in the past. I honestly just find a lot of Sportsnet's marketing to be cringy, if I'm being honest. And a lot of their like coverage is like super like biased or just flat out sensationalist, to be honest. But you know, that's more of a video for another time. Yeah, I'm not too happy about this, and that sort of leads into something we're going to talk about later with the Rogers taking over or being more of a presence in the lives of sports consumers, not just in the greater Toronto area, but you know, from coast to coast. So, yeah, I already don't like how MLSC has handled some of my team's rebuilds, like TFC. I don't know if this is going to make things better or worse, but we'll see.
Speaking of TFC, I wonder if also, since you mentioned TSN and the Raptors, I wonder if TFC, maybe also Montreal and the Whitecaps could be broadcasted on Sportsnet now instead of Apple TV or TSN. That's just food for thought. Continuing with MLSC, I immediately, I think it was either a few days or a week after, MLSC or Rogers laid off people and shut down radio stations in Vancouver, Calgary, Halifax, and Kitchener because there was less advertisement dollars. I'm an outsider. I did not look much into this. I skimmed and saw the Hockey Guys little news of the day video about this, but I'm saying, as an outsider, I'm going to say that reason is BS. That reason is just BS. They just want to line their pockets. They need more money. It's like, we just bought the Maple Leafs and all of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, but we want more money. let's go shut down some radio stations and lay people off. It's just, it's ridiculous. I know monopolies in America are bad. There's probably a lot of bad monopolies, but there's a big monopoly in Canada happening right now, and I think the Parliament in Ottawa is doing anything about it.
Well, honestly, you say the monopolies are bad in America. I would say they're arguably worse in Canada. I think, there is so much pride in Canadians, especially like regional pride, And people like hearing custom, curated, sports media for their specific regions, right? And, Rogers is coming through and like getting rid of a lot of those. It's going to upset a lot of people. Things are getting a little too centralized, which I know we have a small population, relatively speaking, but we are still a big country. I don't think everything needs to be centralized under one umbrella of one Toronto-based company, I don't think people in the other parts of the country want everything to be so Toronto-focused. And as someone who's from Toronto and doesn't live there anymore, I don't want everything to be so Toronto-focused either. It doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to bring in people from other parts of the country. That's unnecessary, And I think it's very important that all these different regions have curated media, like I said. And so to see all these shutdowns is very disappointing. I forgot what else I was going to say. But yeah, monopolies are really having a big impact on every aspect of life in Canada. I wish there were more independent, mainstream sports outlets in different regions of the country that could go toe to toe with each other and with Rogers, Because it's you look at, I don't know, baseball in the U.S. and all the different regional sports networks there are. And I think regional sports networks and regional radio stations are important to have, like I said. And I wish we had more of that. That's something I'm sort of jealous of. You look at how Bally doesn't exist anymore, but there was Bally Sports, there's NBC Sports, there's Yes, there's all these different media companies covering sports in one way or another. And here it's just all Rogers with some Bell sprinkled in here and there, which is not helpful for anyone. And even just putting aside my personal preferences, this is affecting people's jobs and people's livelihoods, There's nothing cool about that. So yeah, I don't think I need to justify my disliking of Rogers anymore.
Let's see what else. But moving on to more television and broadcasting, the St. Louis Blues, along with the Minnesota Wild, the Stanley Cup champion Carolina Hurricanes, and the Columbus Blue Jackets are getting new channels powered by the National Hockey League. This was a big question mark I had since FanDuel Sports Network collapsed, and the Blues, Wild, Hurricanes, and Blue Jackets all had their games broadcasted by that. The NHL is kind of copying MLB's homework, where they're going to have the league themselves, will power broadcast. The Wild made a video, a little skit of their broadcast team imitating the Mighty Ducks. They're returning. So I assume the Blues broadcast crew, mainly Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale and others, are returning. Now, Blues fans, a lot of them do not like Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale, mainly because John Kelly, who had been the longtime play-by-play announcer for the Blues, he was let go, partly because both Blues ownership and FanDuel didn't want to give him a new contract, so Kelly went to the Kings, and Kerber and Vitale became the new voices of the Blues. And a lot of fans did not really like them. I kind of also sort of didn't like them either, but that was mainly because a lot of times they would not focus on the game. They'd be talking about a bunch of random stupid stuff instead of the actual game itself. I mean, it'd be one thing if it was stoppage of play, they mentioned one random thing, but doing it all the time while it's still in play, that just got annoying. But maybe that was just the first season, maybe because they were transitioning, doing both radio and TV at the same time. Adapted, maybe it'll be better, and maybe with the NHL in control instead of a Narsen on the verge of collapsing, things will be better. I'm curious how everything's going to be, both with the Blues and how the Blues broadcast will be, the graphics package, the presentation, everything. I'm curious if it will just be the same graphics package from both NHL Network and MLB Network, or we get new fancy graphics packages, or the Blues just recycle theirs that they use on their scoreboard. I'm curious about that. I'm fascinated with the whole graphics package and presentation, so it's going to be exciting, and I have a feeling it'll be easy to access. I heard the report that they're going to try to make the Blues easy for everyone to access and watch, which is the right thing to do. If you want to grow the game and also have as many eyeballs as possible, you need to make the games most as accessible as possible. And that's with trying your absolute best to not have blackouts. And I wonder also, with the NHL in control of these broadcasts, not only could these be centered to regional locations everywhere across the league and the world. The NHL could use these 4 teams as like showcase, so there are blackouts. Now, I have a few stories about blackouts I want to just mention. For example, this could be also a future collaboration between us, but when I was in May, I had to go to Henry County, Missouri, which is like a little farm town south of Kansas City. I was trying to watch the Cardinals play the Royals. The Cardinals, I was out of their broadcast region, so the Royals channel. I was blacked out for whatever, which I did not get because I was in the Royals broadcast region, but I couldn't watch the game. That happened, but fortunately I was able to watch on MLB.com. They had a free weekend plan because it was a rivalry week. A week ago, I was in Memphis. Now, Memphis is in the Cardinals broadcast region, but for whatever reason, when I tried to get Cardinals TV on DirecTV on my phone, I was blacked out. I don't understand why I was blacked out when I am directly in the Cardinals broadcast region. But that's just something with baseball. But because the Cardinals broadcasts are powered by MLB, that's what I'm just curious about, how the NHL is going to run it as well. So it's certainly something to keep an eye on, to be attentive to. And I'm curious how this is going to work. And before I finish with this part, from what I heard from the hockey guy as well, the Ducks terminated their agreement with Victory Plus, I believe, which had been the broadcast service both them and the Stars used. I thought the Blues were going to join Victory Plus, but I guess not. So there's a chance the Ducks could join this NHL broadcast thingamabob in the future.
Well, I just want to go back to what you said about the availability of streaming. I would really hope that, those teams' regional games will be able to be streamed from anywhere, because that would be so helpful. Like, it would actually be worth it even for some fans of the teams to get on and watch, right? Or, just if you live outside the broadcast region, that would be great. Like, if there's a Blues fan living where I live or a Canes fan living where I live, that would be helpful for them, but I wouldn't be surprised if, for whatever reason, they just aren't allowed to broadcast outside certain areas, especially because it's run by the NHL itself. I bet they have their own rules they have to adhere to. Even ESPN Plus, we don't get in Canada, and I don't know why. I wouldn't be surprised if it's some sort of government thing. Either ESPN doesn't feel like it's worth hosting ESPN Plus in Canada, or they're not allowed to because of Rogers meddling. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. But anyway, yeah, if that new streaming service is available outside those regional broadcasting areas, that would be great. But as long as you guys are able to watch games within your region easily, that's what matters. You gotta watch the game. TV viewership is paramount to sustaining a fan base. So hopefully it's easy for you guys, and hopefully this agreement stays for years to come.
All right, moving on. Speaking of the Hurricanes, the entire Dundon family was engraved on the cup. I believe it was a few weeks ago. The Hurricanes, the Stanley Cup was engraved with all the Hurricanes players and executives. And one thing that stood out was the entire Dundon family was on the cup. Initially, when I saw this, I wasn't as concerned as other people were until I saw someone point out that there was I think the equipment manager and another player who had played a certain amount of games. Neither of them were going to be on the cup because Tom Dundon had put everyone. I'm looking up the cup right now. So Tom Dundon, looks like his wife, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. His 5 kids are all in the cup, and think some of them are as young as like in second grade, I believe, which I know Dundon's the owner, but this kind of reminds me of when way back in the day, Peter Pocklington, former owner of the Oilers, put his dad on the cup as well, even though his dad had no investment, no ownership of the Oilers, and eventually his name got the Pocklington dad's name got X'd out. So kind of a bad look for Tom Dundon, even though he's been so far a good owner for the Hurricanes. We'll get more into Dundon in a little bit, but yeah, kind of not a good look.
Yeah, I gotta say my piece about this. This pisses me off, bro. Like, just ignoring the family members for a second, I think team owners should be at the very bottom of the list of names. Because, let's be real, fans do not care about the owners. We do not care that you own the teams. We care about the players. We care about the coaching staff. We care about the equipment managers. They all did more to get the cup win than the owner did. I mean, the owner had some part of it, don't get me wrong. Like, a bad owner can really, like, sink a team's chances. But, like, at the end of the day, you're just a guy who sits up in the office. You did the least amount of work. You should be on the bottom of the cup. To quote Ted Lasso, well, actually, I'm paraphrasing here, but to quote Ted Lasso, just because you own the team doesn't mean it belongs to you. And I just gotta say, when I saw that episode and I heard that line for the first time, I was like, damn, that's some fire writing. Like, I've been thinking that for so long, but I didn't know how to say it. But anyway, to put his wife and his kids on there, oh my god, bro. Oh my god. You're teaching your kids that they can just get whatever they want by, like, not doing anything. This is like nepotism participation trophyism right here. This is so beyond stupid, bro. Like imagine, like, I forget which player. I'm really sorry, but I forget which player was left off the cup. Imagine this. You help your team win the Stanley Cup only to have some kid who wasn't even alive when Fortnite came out to get his name on the cup. What the hell? That is horrible. Tom Dundon, congratulations. You have risen the ranks to become most hated owner in the NHL. I didn't think Aquilini would ever get dethroned, but here we are. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to get that out of my system real quick, but yeah.
And speaking of Tom Dundon, he doesn't just own the Hurricanes, he owns the Portland Trailblazers of the National Basketball Association. Recently, things have come out that Dundon isn't exactly he's ruffling the feathers of Portland a lot. He cheaped out on a bunch of things. He really didn't get playoff shirts, which is a big tradition in basketball, not as much in hockey. And most recently, the Trailblazers and the city of Portland cannot get a lease and renovations agreed on for the Trailblazers' new arena. And this has caused many, many rumors that the Trailblazers could try to move. And two of the cities that the rumors rumors focus heavy on are Kansas City and St. Louis. St. Louis, to me, that stands out for a few reasons. Not just because I'm from St. Louis, I'm a Blues fan, stuff like that, but because one of the minority owners in the group, in Dundon's group with the Trailblazers, is Ross Shafit, who is a big St. Louis guy. He's big with St. Louis University. The college basketball arena, I believe, is named after, maybe, I don't think it's named after him, or maybe it might be because he paid for it, either that or his dad paid for it, but Shafit has big ties to St. Louis, so that just makes the rumors that they could try to move to St. Louis big. And one of the local news stations in St. Louis made an article about the NBA possibly coming to St. Louis. What it did say, what was big, is the Blues are fine with that happening. The Blues are fine with an NBA team moving to St. Louis and sharing the Enterprise Center with. There would not need to be as much, not many renovations, if at all. So that's big. The only reason I mention this is because if that does happen, Portland's off the map. Portland could possibly be looking at an NHL team to get back, and St. Louis all of a sudden, well, now they have a basketball team. Now all of a sudden the Blues have a tenant. But if it doesn't go to St. Louis, they talked about was Kansas City. Now, if anyone knows me, they know I want an NHL team in Kansas City badly. Kansas City got screwed over with the Scouts. They have the T-Mobile Center, which has been waiting since 2007, but it also can hold basketball. So if basketball comes to Kansas City and it's a success, who knows, maybe the NHL sees that and says, we should give them a hockey team as well. It's just something I wanted to mention because it is relevant to hockey and how it could affect either Kansas City or St. Louis. Now, if you're asking me, I don't want the Trailblazers to come to St. Louis. One, I'm a Raptors fan. Two, I don't want an NBA team to move here. If an NBA team wants to come to St. Louis, it has to be an expansion team. And three, we complain about the Rams moving from St. Louis, or moving out of St. Louis. It'd be really hypocritical for us to complain about losing a team only for us to rip a team from another city. It'd just be very hypocritical and kind of a bad look.
Well, I didn't think we'd be talking so in depth about basketball on a hockey podcast, let alone a small market team like the Blazers. And I'm sorry, Trailblazers fans, but by NBA standards, you are a small market team. I'm sorry. But one thing I wanted to point out is that if, God forbid, this relocation happens, that means that all three of the big Pacific Northwest cities will have lost their NBA team, which is really unfortunate. We will have gone from having 3 teams here to having 0. However, one of the rumored relocation cities is in fact Seattle. So that would be such like salt in the wound for Portland fans if the Trailblazers end up moving to Seattle, because like there's already an existing rivalry between those two cities. People in Portland do not like Seattle, and that is probably the worst case scenario for them. And I'm sure most Seattle basketball fans would rather have have an expansion team. Like, they know firsthand what it's like, the pain to like have your team relocate, and I don't think they would wish that on anyone else. If you've experienced that, you would not want it to happen to anyone else. It's one of those I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy type situations. But I think it's like almost certain that Seattle's going to get a team within the next decade. I hope it's not the Trailblazers. I hope they stay put. But going back to like St. Louis, Kansas City, I think St. Louis makes more sense because they're the largest metropolitan area in Missouri. However, Kansas City has a fantastic state-of-the-art arena right in downtown. And the fact that there's not an NHL team or an NBA team there is kind of ridiculous. It's begging for one. Kansas City's pretty big. It's rapidly improving. It's becoming like more of an exciting place to be year over year. And I think, more pro sports is an inevitability. I mean, it just seems like a natural place for a team. If the Trailblazers relocate, my vote would be to send them to Kansas City, but it's not like I have a say. But yeah, Tom Dundon, if this happens, more reason to hate him.
Moving on to another team with red and black as their colors, Connor Bedard. We have 2 different things to talk about him. During, I believe it was off-season training, he suffered an injury and is now out for 4 months. This is big, because also this summer, Connor Bedard signed a 5-year extension. He's an extension for 5 years. I believe this year I think it was an RFA, so he had a 5-year deal worth $75 million total and a $15 million AAV. Part of me thought the injury might have cost him a million or two, but it seems like Connor Bedard has a lot of confidence in the Blackhawks, at least for 5 years. Now, every Canucks fan and their mother thinks once that contract expires, Bedard is on the first train to Vancouver. Calm yourselves. But I'm a little baffled by Chicago's other big move. They traded for Bowen Byram. I don't remember if we talked about this or not, but I think we did. But I don't know what Chicago is doing. And of course, to get even more butts in seats, Patrick Kane is back in Chicago for a 2-year deal. I think it's a 2-year retirement tour, maybe. It came down to between either Chicago or Buffalo, and he went back to Chicago. So everywhere I went, everywhere on Twitter, and I saw so many Hawks fans acting like they had just won the Stanley Cup. The Blackhawks are going back to the playoffs. They're back on the map, baby. They better watch out. No, Chicago is not going to the playoffs. Not with that defense. Not with Spencer Knight doing his best to carry the team. Not with Bedard, 37-year-old Patrick Kane, and not much else. Chicago will be lucky to finish 7th in the Central. I'm not that intimidated. I'm just not. I can't take Chicago seriously, especially with the tough division they're in. A division with Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, Utah, and St. Louis. Those are 5 teams that could make the playoffs this year. Chicago would be lucky to finish 7th or 6th in the Central.
Well, I gotta say, Chicago is like the best way I can visualize the Chicago Blackhawks is to think of like a bobblehead in the sense that they are a very top-heavy team. So let's do a head count here. No pun intended. We have one of the most talented young centers in the league in Connor Bedard. And then we're adding a 3-time Stanley Cup champion winger in Patrick Kane. And it is like the perfect storm of young meets old. And Patrick Kane, he's not really slowed down. I mean, he had 41 assists last year, and that's pretty good. Like, that's an improvement over most of the years prior. So he hasn't exactly slowed down, I'd say. 57 points in 67 games played last year. That's not bad. By any means, like, that's not bad. Like, he's still putting up numbers, and he's going to be playing with Bedard now. So, yeah, you're right. That's going to get butts in seats. Not that they really need it, though, because, like, you know, the Blackhawks are an original 6 team. It's not the 2000s anymore. People are showing up to their games. But, yeah, beyond that, not really a whole lot to write home about. Good on Bedard. He signed, like, a team-friendly contract, I think. And, you know, that definitely helps. But, you know, at some point, you got to start, like, building something around him, you know? Like, my dad and I actually talk about Connor Bedard somewhat frequently, you know? He feels bad for him. And, you know, he honestly deserves better. Like, he's fun to play. Or fun to watch. Thank goodness for editing. And it's kind of a shame that the Blackhawks can't really build a solid team around him. This doesn't count. This is nostalgia baiting, basically. It'll be fun to see Kane retire as a Blackhawk, and, you know, I'm sure he'll have a very emotional send-off in his final game, and, you know, I'm sure Hawks fans will enjoy being able to experience the new and the old, but, yeah, I don't see this team stiff in the playoffs for a while, which, you know, I'm sure you're very happy about.
Yes, I am. And I mean, as I mentioned again, the Blackhawks, their ceiling is probably like 6th or 7th in the Central. Speaking of the Blackhawks, they got shoehorned onto opening night for the 5th year in a row. This time they're shoehorned to play the Golden Knights. And by play, I mean probably get slaughtered by them. The Golden Knights are defending Western Conference champions. The Blackhawks, without Bedard, remember, he's going to be out until, like, I think November or December. They're going to be kind of limping into Vegas. So, yeah, there's that. Because the NHL needs the ratings, and ESPN is just so fascinated with Chicago. And, ooh, it's the big market. We got to have them on TV. It's got... part of me kind of feels a little jealous that the Blues are not a big market team, but at the same time, if being a big market team means you're always on the big nights, you're the big marketing tools, I think we're fine being a medium-sized market. I think we're fine.
Yeah, I sort of understand what you're saying there. Like, when the Leafs are doing bad, it's like, I kind of don't want them on national TV. But, you know, since there are so few teams in Canada, you're bound to be embarrassed on national TV a lot, like the Canucks were last year. That's sort of the nature of the beast. It's its pros and cons. Definitely the biggest pro is, like, there's so many Leafs fans no matter where they're playing, whether it be Calgary, whether it be Tampa. It's always cool to see so many traveling fans, but unfortunately it means we have a lot of haters as well. And speaking of haters, of course the NHL has to put the two of the most hated teams in the NHL against each other. It's like, oh gosh, who do you want to lose more? Everyone's just going to be cheering for the asteroid pretty much. But, I mean, no surprise really. Like, again, Bedard and now Kane, And the Blackhawks, by many margins, are considered to be the most popular hockey team in the United States. It's between them and the Red Wings, but I think the Blackhawks are a bit more popular. Maybe even the Penguins are, I'm not sure, but I think it's the Blackhawks. And versus the Golden Knights, who have been consistently good for literally their entire existence. They're entering their 10th season of existence, and they just made it to the finals. So yeah, to be honest, it's a bit predictable, but at the same time, the NHL would be stupid to not have this as their opening night national TV slot, you know? Like, you know, it's important that the NHL does everything they can to get people's eyes on the sport, you know, especially, you know, with build up to the next World Cup of hockey and all that. They're trying to sustain hockey viewership from the Olympics. So, you know, smart of them from a business standpoint. Some people might not like it, but that's just the nature of the beast. Although, a little unrelated, it's going to take a lot more than that to help viewership.
Moving on, Leo Carlsson is staying with the Ducks. Instead of signing the offer sheet with Philadelphia, the Anaheim matched it. So that means Leo Carlsson is now the highest paid player in the NHL. He is making $18 million a year. That is $1 million more than Kirill Kaprizov. Now this is big, not just because he's the highest paid player in the NHL for now, but his teammate Cutter Gauthier needs an extension. And with the big extension Carlson got, I heard that Gauthier wants a lot of money. And the problem is with this, Anaheim is going to have to do some salary cap gymnastics.
Yeah, no kidding. I don't know if you know this or not, but the Canadian sports media, or one of our commentators, I forget if it was a Sportsnet or TSN commentator, he said that the Anaheim Ducks had the worst offseason of any team in the NHL. And wow, are people going to come at me with pitchforks and torches if I say this is a tad bit of an overpay? Like, holy crap, dude. Okay, Carlson, he had a breakout season last year. 67 points, 29 goals, 38 assists. That's pretty good. That is a valuable player without a doubt. But my gosh, this 21-year-old is now the highest paid player in the league. More than McDavid, more than McKinnon, more than Matthews, more than Draisaitl, more than either of the Hughes brothers, more than Caulfield, more than any of the Tkachuk brothers? Really? This guy? Like, wow. Yeah, so to say they're going to have to do some salary cap gymnastics going forward is a bit of an understatement. The Anaheim Ducks went from being completely irrelevant and having none of the media talk about them to now being one of the biggest, if not the biggest, stories of the offseason. So yeah, I don't know if this jeopardizes their future in any way. We'll have to wait and see.
Now, other news, Steve has stepped down as Red Wings GM. On July 15th, he stepped down. The Red Wings announced a leadership transition in their little media statement. Basically, he stepped down, and I believe he's now he's a senior advisor to Governor and CEO Chris Ilitch, the Red Wings owner. I didn't think this was going to happen. If you viewers may remember, Dylan Larkin requested a trade. It was one of the side effects of the U.S. winning gold and the Red Wings missing the playoffs again. Steve Yzerman has been blamed for all of this. In 2019, Yzerman came back to the Red Wings. He officially became GM. I guess he did what everyone called the Yzer plan. The only problem is the Yzer plan hasn't gone anywhere. Red Wings still have not made the playoffs since 2016. Furthermore, if you remember from this season, the Red Wings traded their first-round pick to the Blues, and that eventually was used for the Blues to get Mason McTavish. But in a way, the Red Wings still gave up their first-round pick and got worse, and everyone's been pointing the finger at Yzerman. And with the news of Larkin requesting a trade, and allegedly he had the captaincy stripped of him, I think I reported on that, but I have to double check to see if that is actually true or not. but Yzerman has stepped down. He's no longer GM. So who knows what's going to happen now with the Red Wings? Is Larkin still going to request want a trade? Apparently he had 4 teams: Carolina, Florida, Minnesota. I think I saw Dallas was potentially one of those teams. But it's just gonna be a bunch of question marks with Detroit, who is just, I don't want to say I sympathize with them because they're an old Blues rival and they're kind of spoiled-ish, sort of, but you still kind of sort of feel bad a little bit, sort of, since the Red Wings used to be this big evil empire back in the 2000s and early 2010s, but it just shows you how big of a fall from grace teams in sports can have.
Well, I think this is just the natural way of the universe. The Red Wings were so dominant in the 90s and the 2000s and part of the 2010s. All this suffering is bound to happen. I don't think we can definitively say the Yzer plan has been a failure yet. And I know that might sound crazy to say, but even though he's not GM anymore, all of the seeds that he planted are still there. And while I do think the Yzer plan basically has 1 foot in the grave this year, or 1 foot in the grave in general, I mean, if the Red Wings by some miracle make the playoffs this year, I think you can't really call it a failure, right? Even though he's not GM anymore. However, I think it's going to prove to have been a failure, unfortunately. I don't think the Red Wings are necessarily a terrible team. I don't think they were last year. They were gunning for a playoff spot most of last year. They just sort of flamed out, and at the same time, a lot of their division rivals got hot. It's not really like in previous seasons where like the Red Wings were just bad. They're a good team now. It's just every other team in the Atlantic is also good. So it went from being just like the team's bad to the team is unlucky, which is a shame, and it reflects poorly on Yzerman's legacy as a GM, but that's just how it goes sometimes. And it's kind of crazy because even with the Red Wings expected to take a step back, I, as a Leafs fan, am still weary of them. They finished ahead of us last year. Who's to say they won't do the same this year? Granted, I'm expecting the Leafs take some steps forward, but you know, it's going to be tough in the Atlantic Division. But yeah, Red Wings fans, yeah, there's no light at the end of the tunnel for you guys, unfortunately. But that's being a hockey fan.
Moving on to a Blues division rival, Jason Robertson signed a 1-year deal for $12 million with the Stars, which avoided a salary arbitration hearing. So basically, there was the big dilemma that Robertson and the Stars couldn't get to an agreement. There was a plan to send him to Seattle, which Robertson denied. There was a plan to send him to St. Louis, which Robertson also denied. And eventually the Stars and him went to the table, basically a 1-year work deal for $12 million. What this does is that next offseason, either Robertson signs a long-term extension later this season with the Stars or is traded and then signs an extension with the team, Jason Robertson will be a free agent, an unrestricted free agent, on July 1st, 2027. This was big. We're going to see how it goes this season. Is the drama of this going to affect both Robertson and the Stars themselves, or will it just be white noise and the team just does really well? The Stars have their usual good season as they've had the past few seasons. The Blues fan in me wants them to fail. But still doesn't mean they're gonna fail unless they do fail, and then that just happened.
As of right now, Robertson's sort of gunning for free agency next year. From his perspective, I would see no reason to, make a run for it and go to another team. The Stars are kind of like, they're the Hurricanes of the West. At least they were before the Hurricanes won a cup. They keep getting close, but they just can't get over that hump. And, from where he's standing, this team still has, chances to go to the cup. And I'm sure he wants to win a cup. So I have no reason why he'd necessarily go to another team. Unless some other team is like building a juggernaut and happens to have a decent amount of cap space for a guy like him. But I think he's going to stay as a star, but we'll see what happens.
Moving on, another RFA signed a deal before arbitration. Blues' recent acquisition, Connor McMichael, signed a 6-year deal worth $6.75 million. I'm just glad this got solved before arbitration. I'm hopeful that McMichael continues his decent production. I know last year was a down year, but hopefully he bounces back, adjusts to St. Louis, and hopefully the deal doesn't become an anchor. But there's only one way to find out, and that will be when the season begins.
Well, he had a pretty good regular season last year. I think 14, 32, and 46. 14 goals, 32 assists, 46 points. Connor McMichael. So, by your estimation, what line do you think he's going to slot into?
I am not sure. If I were to guess as of now, lines, the Thomas Holloway Snuggerud line, that's going to stay put. Now that you say that, I honestly do not know. I think if I were to at least guess for now, Michael will go either on the second or the third line. It's also going to depend. It's just my estimate now. It will all depend on now, training camp, the preseason, and I guess the beginning. But again, there's only one way to find out.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because, like, a 46-point center, I don't think that's, like, fourth line material. I think second or third is, like, that's the safe bet, I would say. But yeah, like, the same thing's sort of going on in Leafland right now. People are having fun, like, coming up with their own, like, line predictions and whatnot. And, especially when it comes to, like, are Matthews and Nylander going to be on the same line or whatever. But yeah, that's always, like, fun to theorize. But yeah, we'll move on to the next topic.
So, Hellebuck trade rumors continue. And the biggest team to keep an eye on is Buffalo. I heard that Buffalo was the biggest team that wants to get him. I think I saw Utah or maybe Vegas also. As a Blues fan, I'm just hoping that Hellebuck gets out of the Central, out of the West. If it's Buffalo, fine, whatever. As long as Connor Hellebuck is out of Winnipeg and out of the Central, I don't care. If it's Buffalo, if it's Florida, not Utah, not Vegas, none of them. I think I saw the rumored return first would be Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and maybe a prospect, and I would assume a draft pick or two to Winnipeg. But yeah, something to keep an eye on as well with Connor Hellebuck being upset with how the Jets have been doing. Once more and more, 1.6 seconds looks like a fluke, as it was.
Well, I gotta say, selfishly, I disagree with you wanting him to go to Buffalo because the last thing we need is for the reigning Atlantic Division champions to get a gold medal winning goalie. It's a nightmare. I don't even want to think about that scenario. Please let him go to, like, Utah or, like, some team on the West that I just don't care about. Please. I gotta say, like, Hellebuck, I'm very sorry. Before the Olympics or before the gold medal game, I called you a fraud, and then you guys beat Canada. That's like some divine karma right there. I said he was going to get lit up. That did not end up happening, so I'm very sorry. Please stay out of the Atlantic Division.
Moving on, the NHL is investigating, you heard that correctly, investigating Houston and Austin cities. Now, when I heard they were saying they were investigating, all I picture is Gary Bettman and, like, Sherlock Holmes attire with a magnifying glass walking around the arena like, yes, you guys have quite the capacity, but this arena is 20-something years old. You guys are going to need a new arena if you want a team. It's just super funny saying the word investigating. That's the fancy buzzword they use for they're looking at a city for expansion. Houston we've known for so long now. Austin's a weird one. I might be the only person that thinks Austin is not a exactly the biggest sports town. I know there's a growing city and it's got companies and whatever, but I'm not in favor of Austin. I don't think Austin will get a team. Houston is like all but a guarantee. They just got to figure out owners and arenas and stuff like that. But expansion's going to be on the horizon, even though Bettman has said we're not in expansion mode. Just because you aren't in expansion mode doesn't mean people people do not want expansion. And I've heard the expansion fee could be anywhere from like $1 billion to $2 billion. Because I know Utah, for the price that Ryan Smith paid to buy the assets of the Coyotes was about like $1.2 billion. So it could be more than that. It could be 1.5 billion, it could be 1.75 billion, it could be 2 billion. It's all going to depend on when this expansion happens.
Well, I've made videos about NHL expansion in the past. You have too. I've established that I believe Houston should be the next NHL city. I think it's insane that a city that big didn't get an NHL team decades ago. I'm really surprised that in the wave of new teams that came in the 90s, Houston wasn't one of them. They have an arena ready to go. They've given us NHL talent like Tyler Myers. It seems like a no-brainer putting a team in Houston. That's going to be a lot more eyes on the NHL. That's going to be a lot more eyes on the sport, which is what we want. We want people watching the NHL. We want the game to grow. And Houston's a large, established city. Putting a team there makes sense. Now, Austin, I don't really want to say Austin is an up-and-coming city. I mean, okay, it is, but it's not a hidden gem anymore. Like, everyone knows about Austin. Everyone glazes it and says it's awesome. And it's definitely improving. It's getting to be a better place to live. In fact, I believe they just finished building the largest skyscraper in the southern United States. So yeah, it's trying to put itself on the map. It's trying to legitimize itself as one of the titan cities of the US. You know, the place to be. The place that's always fun. The place that's always happening. And it's still growing at a crazy rate. And putting an NHL team there wouldn't be crazy. In fact, it would make perfect sense. I'm just picturing it now. I'm picturing like a team that has like a green color scheme. Sort of like when I think of Austin FC. So now I associate the color green with that city. So that would mean 2 green and black teams in the state of Texas, which would be kind of funny. But they don't have an NHL arena. Just outside of Austin in Cedar Park, that's where the Stars AHL affiliate plays. So yeah, pro hockey is not unfamiliar to the Austin metro area, but Houston just makes more sense out of those two cities just because it's more established of a place. But Austin, with, you know, as many young people as it has, as many like, you know, new transplants that are coming into the city, it wouldn't be ridiculous to put a team there either. I would want a team to go to Austin personally, but if I had to choose between those two cities, I think Houston makes the most sense. And I also have to mention the Quebec Nordiques real quick. I know a lot of people want a team to go back to Quebec, and I do too. I really do. But, you know, when it comes to potential viewership, when it comes to the amount of sponsors and everything to do with money, Houston and Austin just make more sense. They make a better business case for themselves. I'm really sorry, Quebec. It's not that you guys aren't great fans, because you are, but Houston and Austin are realistically ahead of you in line. Kansas City's probably ahead of you in line. Atlanta's probably ahead of you in line. San Diego and Portland are probably ahead of you in line. But yeah, bottom line, I think Houston should be the next NHL city, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, rounding out this episode, recent news say that the U.S. president, who I will not be naming, has put tariffs on hockey sticks from Canada. Why is he doing this? Because of the smoke from Canadian wildfires. And usually we would not report this. I would not touch this with a 50-foot pole, but hockey related. Well, the only problem I've seen people say is that most hockey sticks don't come from Canada. At least I don't think most NHL hockey sticks don't come from Canada. It's just going to be a little bizarre, the whole mind-boggling fires. What's the response? Give them tariffs on hockey sticks. Doesn't make sense, especially since the US won gold in hockey. So let's make it less affordable and accessible for people. It's just mind-boggling, and it doesn't make sense. I don't get it. Charlie, can you confirm or deny if most of or a little bit of NHL sticks come from Canada or not?
I'm just looking online here. Now, keep in mind, this is like the AI overview, which can make mistakes. I don't want to just blindly quote this, but usually it's right. It says, equipment giants like Bauer and CCM manufacture the vast majority of their performance composite sticks in Asia or handle distribution through complex North American channels. So, yeah, if they're coming in through Asia, it doesn't really make a difference. And I just gotta say, this is a completely ridiculous decision just because of, like, you know, what it represents, you know? Hockey sticks in particular, it's like choosing to tariff something, it just seems like you tariff to, like, the most stereotypically Canadian thing out there, like really hockey sticks. He didn't go with baseball bats. He didn't go with golf clubs. He went with hockey sticks. All of this because of forest fire smoke, which we can't control, by the way. Like, for those of you in the US that were struggling with, like, the smoke and all that, I'm sorry. I genuinely am sorry. I know that's not fun, and I genuinely feel bad, especially for those of you who already have underlying breathing problems. But, like, we were suffering too. We don't want more people to suffer. No one benefits from that. It's not like we have a giant fan and we were just blowing the smoke across intentionally. And as for, like, taking care of our forests, we have a lot of forests in remote locations, and we're doing everything we can. Thankfully, the problem has subsided a bit, but this is ridiculous. These tariffs are going to go into effect in August, and the problem is, like, sort of over now. This is like a problem that lasted, like, a few days, and now, like, most of the smoke's gone. It's ridiculous. And honestly, nobody really benefits from this decision. No one really suffers from it either, to be honest. Like, it's not like any of our lives are going to get harder because of, like, hockey stick, you know, tariffs, right? But also, this is just sort of a head scratcher, especially, like, in the sense of, like, how Americans, like, view the sport. Because I was under the impression that, like, many American institutions and, like, politicians and, like, just, like, mainstream figures in general, they were sort of, like, big on hockey after that gold medal win. And you should be. You should be big on hockey after that gold medal win. So it's like, are you embracing the sport? This seems like sort of like a hostility towards the sport. Maybe from, like, their point of view, and I mean, like, they, as in, like, the administration, maybe they see hockey stick tariffs as, like, them being protective over, like, their side of the sport, you know? And, like, their local hockey community. But I don't see it that way, and I don't think most people see it that way. I don't think this really helps the U.S. hockey community at all. That must have been, like, their thought process. That's the only thing that could make any ounce of sense. But this doesn't really help the U.S. hockey community that much. It doesn't help us, but it doesn't really hurt us either. You know, there's always going to be demand for hockey sticks right here at home anyway. And if the AI overview is right and a bunch of the materials are coming from Asia, then it doesn't even matter. So, yeah. But, you know, despite politics getting in the way, I like to believe that we are all still friends, whether that be hockey fans or not. We are all still on good terms with each other, you know. At the end of the day, the government's one thing, but they don't speak for everyone, you know. only you can speak for yourself. And like, as long as you're a good person, you know, whether you're Canadian or American, you're cool with me, and that's all that matters. We all love the same sport.
Same here. I have plans to actually go to Canada, to Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, Quebec City. Basically, almost in Canada, except Winnipeg. I'm staying away from there. Please keep away from me. But yeah, Canadians, I don't, and Winnipeg, I don't have problems with you. It's just that Blues Jets rivalry. But I don't have any problems with Canada. Canada's our neighbors to the north. Politics, they're going to be the politics. They're going to pick fights with everyone that looked at them funny or doesn't look at them funny and feels threatened by their existence. But political stuff aside, I think that might just about do it for this episode. Charlie, do you have anything else you want to talk about before we conclude?
Nope, that'll just about do it.
All right. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Both as usual. You know where to find our channels. I believe this video will. Charlie, what day do you think this video or this episode will release by?
Well, it's Monday right now, so I'm gonna try to have it up by Wednesday, and if not Wednesday, then Thursday by the latest.
I think, okay, by Wednesday or Thursday. I am also working on a video right now on when this releases. I think my video will come out either on Thursday or Friday. So that really also, he did a test stream earlier, so he's going to be experimenting with live streams. Maybe I'll start live streaming as well. Who knows? We'll have a dual live stream. But with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.